I was reading today, and this was kind of cool. It was in the reading, but in life is not fair, but God is just. We're all going to experience suffering in our lives, and it's just a fact. Life is not fair, but the truth is God is just. And in 1 Peter, it says this: after you have suffered a little while, God, the God of grace, who imparts blessing and favor, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself complete, confirm, and strengthen you and establish you, making you what you ought to be. And that reminds me of the story of Joseph. Kind of, if you read over his life, you talk about suffering. That dude went through some serious suffering. He was raised in his family. He was a favorite of his family, but then his brothers, out of jealousy, sell him into slavery. When he goes into slavery, he's serving the master and he's doing the best, makes his master extremely wealthy and does really well by him. But his master's wife thinks he's hot, so she hits on him, and then she accuses him of rape. He goes to prison for something that he didn't even do, right? It was her that was being the aggressor, and he ran from her. And if he were in the mindset of life is not fair, he'd have been like, God, why are you doing this to me? Life isn't fair, and get angry. It's the thing is when life is unfair, the most critical thing is how we respond to it. And we see that in the life of Joseph. He didn't respond with bitterness. He didn't respond with anger or getting angry with God. But he realized, life isn't fair, but God is just. And so even through that, when he went to prison, he helped some people out in prison, and they forgot about him. But all of those things, God was, just like it says in here, he was completing him, confirming him, strengthening him so that he could become what he ought to be. Because if he hadn't suffered through all those things, he wouldn't have the humility, he wouldn't have the patience, and he wouldn't have the wisdom that he needed to become the second ruler over all of Egypt, at that time the wealthiest nation. So realize in life, man, we're going to have suffering, but we need to learn to suffer well. Because life isn't fair, but God is just. And if we can remember that all things work together for good for those who love him, for those who are called according to his purpose, we can make it through the suffering and realize, it's all going to work out in the end. And sometimes we don't even see it work out in this life. But in the grand scheme of things, when we see all of life come together and all the influence and circumstances that happen, that God was working everything out for the greater good. Anyway, that's all I got. Heavenly Father,